All right, people, let's talk volumes of cylinders. So a cylinder has a circular base on the bottom, and then we've got a height. So we're talking like a soup can or a silo, Pringles can, something like that is what we're talking about when we talk about a cylinder. So to find the volume of a cylinder, so we're talking about how much is inside of that cylinder. The volume of a cylinder is the product of the area of the base and the height of the cylinder. So the area of the base in this case is a circle times the height of the cylinder itself. So we're going to have V equals BH, or you might actually see V equals pi r squared h. That's what you'll see on your MCAS reference sheet. So the pi r squared comes from the area of the base. All right, so let's try a few of these. So find the volume of the cylinder, round your answer to the nearest tenth. So we're going to work with FSSU here. So I'm going to start by writing my formula. Volume equals pi r squared h. I'm going to substitute in what I've got here. So here's my diagram. I've got a height of 15 feet. The height and the base are always perpendicular to each other. So the height and the base always make a right angle. Any shape, any figure that you talk about, if they talk about height and base, those are always perpendicular to each other. And then here is my radius of 4 feet. Remember, the radius is from the center of the circle out to the circumference. So I'm going to substitute in my radius, which is 4 here. I'm going to substitute my height, which is 15. Then I'm going to start to solve. So I've got the volume equals pi times 16. 4 squared is 16 times 15. I'm doing 16 times 15, which is 240. And then I grab my calculator. We'll use 3.14 for pi. So I do pi 3.14 times 240, and I get 753.6, since we said round to the nearest tenth. And volume is in cubic units, so I've got feet squared. All right, so that is how we work with our volume formula if we're looking for the volume. Let's say we're not looking for the volume. Let's say we know the volume and we're looking for the missing, another missing dimension. So we've got a cylinder here that has a diameter of 8 centimeters. So notice that this is not a radius, this is a diameter. So for the diameter is 8 centimeters. So the first thing I want to do is figure out the radius. So if the diameter is 8 centimeters, the radius is half of that, so the radius is 4 centimeters. They've given us the volume of 176 centimeters cubed. So my volume, I'm going to start with my formula. Volume equals pi r squared h. I'm going to substitute. Here's my 176 for the volume. I've got pi, my radius is 4 squared, and h is my height. I'm going to hang on to the pi symbol until the very last minute. So I'm not going to change it to a constant until I'm going to leave it as a variable for now. So next I do 4 squared, I get 16. So I have 176 equals pi times 16 times h. So I want to get this h by itself, so I'm going to divide by 16 pi. Since we're multiplying times the h, I'm going to divide by those. So 16 pi cancels out here on the right-hand side, and I'm left with 176 over 16 pi. So I grab my calculator. 16 times 3.14 is 49.76, and then when I do the division, I get about 3.5. So my height is 3.5 centimeters for this particular cylinder. All right, last one we've got is a word problem. A cylinder has a height of 10 centimeters and a volume of 471 centimeters cubed. Find the diameter of the cylinder. So again, we start with our formula. Next, I substitute. So I have 471 for my volume equals pi r squared. I've got the height in there of 10. Next, we want the radius by itself here, so I'm going to divide by 10 pi. So the 10 pi and the 10 pi here cancel each other out. On the other side, I'm left with 471 over 10 pi. So 10 times 3.14, I multiply those, and I get 31.4. So instead of 3.14 times 10, I get 31.4. And then when I divide those, I get 15. So now since I have r squared over here, we know when we talked about our squares and our square roots that the opposite of squaring something is finding its square root. So I'm going to square root both sides. So I end up with r is about 3.9, again rounding to the nearest tenth. So since our radius is 3.9, but they've asked us for the diameter here, so notice they asked us for the diameter. Since they want the diameter, I need to multiply that by 2. So I end up with 7.8, and my units here is centimeters. Again, notice that my volume unit is a cubic unit, but my diameter unit is linear, so it is just straight up centimeters.